Better rock, better talk. Damn radio.
Hello, good evening, welcome. I am Samuel Trapp. This is International Flavor. You are listening to Damn Radio. It is 9 p.m. in Central Missouri and many other places, but Central Missouri is what's important to us. Lots going on today. I have quite a bit I want to talk about. Lawsuit got filed today. I told you a little bit about it last night. There's still plenty of international news to go into as well that I wanted to talk about. But before I get to that, I thought it would be excuse me, appropriate to go through some of these. Everybody knows me to be pretty much, I don't know, I used to describe myself as a conservative when it came to fiscal and financial policy, but otherwise, more, I suppose, more of a libertarian approach, hands off. You know, what do I care if somebody wants to, I don't know, be gay, somebody wants to marry a man wants to marry a man, or a woman wants to marry a woman. I disagree with it, but okay, people might disagree with the way I decide to run my life, and but I've always been kind of a, long as you're not bothering me, okay. I found it interesting in high school, the Army, afterward, dealing with people that I knew to be gay, alternate lifestylists of whatever kind that they were, but it doesn't impact me, so I haven't really paid attention to it. Well, I have a ton of stories that I could give you in that regard from when I was in the military. Policy in the military was don't ask, don't tell. When I went in, then they changed it to, when I went in, I believe it was you couldn't have that kind of a relationship, and it stayed that way. But before, they would prosecute on it, and after, it was the don't ask, don't tell was a pretty big deal, and so, and homosexuality is not the point of my discussion tonight. The point is basic freedoms of a person and what that is in America. And the fact is, you can disagree with what other people choose to do in their lives and the approaches that they take. So, as many of you may know, I grew up Mormon, and I remember when I was in the military and had an idiot sergeant who was just dumb as a bag of hammers. At least it was a whole bag of hammers, though, and it wasn't just one. But he basically told me that I couldn't be a good Mormon, and I said, well, that's for me to figure out, and none of your damn business if I am or not, but tell me why it's important to you. And he said, well, I saw you drinking, milk. You drink milk like it's going out of style. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, I'm from one of them sects of Mormonism that, allows you to drink milk. Yeah, I thought it was something like that. And then he says, when are you going to get your second wife? I noticed you're married. I said, oh, well, usually something like, you have to be married a certain number of years. I said, I don't really know. I said, I can barely handle one wife. Not sure I could handle two. I said, but they, basically you have to have so many kids, and you gotta, the brotherhood comes and they check you out, and then they kind of set you up with, or kind of like issue you another wife. And the guy goes, yeah, I thought it was something like that. And I was like, yeah. Never did tell the idiot that he was, that I was yanking his chain. And the trouble is, he's probably wandering the planet telling me, oh, no, I knew this Mormon kid, and he said blah, blah, blah. And, took it to heart, but the point of that, it's not what the show is about tonight, or what I want to talk about. It's I remember when the big discussion was about whether gay marriage was going to be able to take place. And I remember doing a show about it from when I was in Qatar because I knew a guy, my brother Matthew and I were working with a Qatari guy that Matt knew a hell of a lot better than me. I was only peripheral, but we would go sit with him and basically, I mean, he's a really nice guy and really wealthy and really pretty cool. And basically, uh, there were some issues with people as they got older and how they, I don't know. And I was never fully versed in it. And I didn't know many Qataris. They, but those that I did know and the other people I taught, I know that uh, polygamy or having more than one wife is definitely allowed. And in some ways, it was kind of politically expected, as you got further up in the issue, according to certain people. And I don't know, I never really paid that much attention to it, but I do know that was the discussion that some of the people that were of that I don't know what generation, I suppose, because he was older than me. That basically was looking into it. And I don't know whatever happened to it. It was only a peripheral discussion. But the way I understood it was that it took place. Well, different cultures, different things. It's not for me to judge. And I've never judged, the Mormon side. It's like, I mean, I'm being truthful when I say I can't handle I can't handle one wife. Why would I? And why would I want more than one? You know what I mean? And at any rate, the point of the show tonight is basically freedom of speech. If you were listening to me last week on the Sunday night deep dive when I was talking to Scott Ritter and the punishment that he's taken, the punishment that people from RT, Russia Today, basically has taken, in our government overreach, which I always like to talk about, and things like that. Well, the topic for today and some of the discussion that I want to get into has to do with this kind of I don't know, judgment against other people. And tonight, especially, I want to talk about free speech, adult expression, and things like prostitution. I've been around the planet. I've been to 54 countries, I think. And by the way, Belarus and Latvia are coming up, and I will. That'll be 55 and 56, I believe. And basically, you can disagree with some, with some of these things, but I want to give you a little bit of a backdrop and then tell you about what's going on, particularly in the case of the state of Missouri. But in order to get there, let's look at from my non-judgmental point of view in the way that I take or accept things in the real world in my adult life, that I just don't try hard not to judge other people. It's not for me to judge. If these things are wrong and people are doing them here on earth and I believe in a God, well, then any God that I believe in will perhaps judge those people if he so chooses. But then again, maybe I'm incorrect and they have a kind of a leg up in that regard, as it were, and I don't. I don't know. I'm not the person in charge of that, but I did want to talk about it because it's I remember again from when I was escorting Russian Soviet diplomats, and especially during the times that we were in Vegas. And it was around this time, if any of you went to Vegas in the 80s, what a dump in all seriousness, it was you would go walking down the street and there was trash everywhere. People were handing out flyers all day long about getting laid, finding a hooker, strip clubs. Who knows? The nastier, the better. And Vegas was really kind of dirty. It began to change. And I think what they did was they started having some, believe it or not, some family venues. And it wasn't just a Sin City sort of a thing. They started changing. They started having high dollar family sorts of adventure. Now, there's still plenty of gambling going on, plenty of adult entertainment. There's I forget some club out there. It was called the Palomino Club. I remember, I remember when I was on the Nevada nuclear test site, and the way that worked was if you were going to be out there for the typical was you'd go there for a week and then you'd go to DC for a week back and forth. But sometimes you would have to be out there 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row. And if you were out there 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row, then you would get 2 days off a week and you could, go into Vegas. And I remember one particular time there was this colonel whose name I won't give out. He was funny as hell, and I thought he was just hilarious. And he was out there with us, and he was just an old crusty dude, had a lot of things. And he goes, one day it was a Friday afternoon, and he goes, comes into my everybody had a separate sort of a hotel room out there. I had my own room, and he came into the room and he goes, Trapp. And I was like, yeah. He goes, looks like you're off next couple of days with, and I remember his name, but I'm not going to say it. It's a Navy guy. He goes, this Navy guy is off, and he's a good guy, and it's his birthday. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. He goes, yeah, it's his birthday. I said, here's what I want you to do. He said, now guarantee me you're going to do this. I was like, whatever, I'll do what you're going to say. He goes, you guys are going in, and what you would do is there was a like an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment that the agency had that was there in downtown Vegas, and you would swap out. Sometimes there'd be some FBI guys there. Sometimes there'd be us military. You'd basically swap it out. And when we got there, it turned out there were 2 other guys. So it ended up being 4 of us. And I slept on the floor, somebody slept on the couch. We all ended up, sharing whatever was available. But this colonel says, Trapp. He goes, you take this guy out to this Palomino Club. He goes, you ever been to the Palomino Club? I was like, no, never. He goes, well, it's a strip club. He goes, and there's a girl that I want you to introduce him to, and she's gonna, and you give her this $50, and you tell her to show him a good time, some, lap dance or whatever. And he goes, and here's another, $20, $30. I want you to take him out, get him some alcohol, and have a good time tonight. And it's my birthday present to him. I was like, okay. I went out and we did that. Okay, now you could judge that, but it was pretty innocent, for the basic part. And I went to a strip club with this guy at the direction of some colonel, or offer of some colonel, depending on how you look at it. And anyway, you could judge for that, or you could not judge. But the women that are there make extremely good money. Okay. Now, one of the other things that happened also in Vegas, outside of town, they're about 100 miles outside of town, but from the Nevada nuclear test site, probably only about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, there is a little town, still exists today, I believe. It is called Pahrump. Pahrump is an unincorporated town located at the southernmost tip of Nye County, Nevada, 50 miles only west of Las Vegas. Pahrump lies adjacent to the Nevada-California border. Pahrump was originally inhabited by the Southern Paiute Indians. It was slowly inhabited by settlers in the late 19th century. They chose the name for Pahrump after the original Southern Paiute name Parimpi, or water rock, so named because the abundant artesian wells in the valley. Because of the development of those wells, recent inhabitants of Pahrump established a number of large ranch-style holdings, mostly over 1,000 acres in size. And they generate alfalfa, cotton, livestock. Until the 60s, Pahrump had no telephone service except one radio transmitter phone in a public booth next to a small market, and not a paved road at all. As Las Vegas grew, the Pahrump region also saw more real estate development and population growth. It led to the introduction of telephones and the construction of a paved highway between Vegas and Pahrump during the 60s. Later, this Nevada 60 was extended to 95. Okay. Now, there was also a casino owner named Ted Binion, who owned Binion's Horseshoe, who allegedly buried a large quantity of silver in a secret underground vault in 98. He died under suspicious circumstances, and one of those accused of murdering was apprehended digging up the vault in Pahrump. A book about this murder trial and Las Vegas poker is called Positively Fifth Street, and it's a book by James McManus. In November 2006, the town board voted an ordinance declaring English the official language, limited the display of foreign flags, and denied housing or illegal immigrants. A measure of this ordinance required American flag be displayed above any other flag, regardless of what organization, nation, or government it represented. Okay? We get into geography and climate. Where is the economy? 2 legal brothels, one named Sherry's Ranch and the other named the Chicken Ranch, are located in Pahrump. Due to their proximity to Vegas, they tend to be more expensive than other legal brothels in Nevada. Okay? So Pahrump has had these, you can go to the Chicken Ranch, and it is a legal licensed brothel 60 miles west of Vegas. And there are 60 courtesans called the Chicken Ranch home girls. That means around 12 to 15 women that live and work there at any time. The women stay for 2 weeks at a time. They are independent contractors, set their own prices and menu. Due to Nye County ordinances, solicitation cannot be done outside of the house of the brothel. The ranch used to house a collection of memorabilia from the original Chicken Ranch, which was located outside of LaGrange, Texas. The ranch also houses the Leghorn Bar. The bar has a separate entrance for visitors not wishing to enter the brothel parlor. So Walter Plankinton operated the Nevada Chicken Ranch in '76 as close to Vegas as legally possible. He encountered strong opposition from local law enforcement and other brothel owners. It does remain the closest brothel to Las Vegas. The initial location of the ranch was inside the town limits, where prostitution was illegal. He was arrested and found guilty of violating the town laws. We moved his brothel to a new location within the county, but outside of the city limits. He served 60 days in jail in 1981. So, Nye County didn't require brothels to be licensed, and 3 other brothels operated legally in the county at the time. Okay. Anyway, you can go read the history of the Chicken Ranch if you like, and it is there are some legal places in Vegas that allow this, so you can agree or disagree, but we have it. And if you want to talk it from an international level, I'm telling you that every army guy has probably done this in Frankfurt, Germany. That if you served in there, you can go and walk through these basically apartment complexes. And when you go through, there's a girl selling her ware in, her lack thereof, in the doorway of wherever you walk past. And the place is like crazy on a Friday, Saturday night. And me and a buddy went up there and wandered around, just say we did it, right? We didn't imbibe, didn't go in there. But it was an interesting concept, and all of them are checked out by doctors. I mean, you can agree or you can disagree with what it is, but different cultures do different things. Some have more wives. I haven't been to Thailand, but apparently that is the number one business in Thailand. Some people call it the oldest business in Thailand. The fact is that I've been to Amsterdam a bunch of times. I love Amsterdam. It's a beautiful city. The Rijksmuseum is unbelievable. And you can go and see Van Gogh paintings. There's a whole floor. And I spent an entire day there seeing Van Gogh paintings that were just phenomenal, and you can just sit there and stare at them forever. Anyway, that's not the topic tonight, but in the red light district, if you go walking through there, it's a little bit different than it is, and it's a little more, I don't know what, little higher class, I suppose. A little better structure, because what they do there is they have little rooms, and these rooms have display windows. Imagine walking through a mall and you see these display windows. Well, this is right on the street, and they don't allow children in there, whatever the age is. I don't know that it's 18. It might only be 16. I have no idea. But, they have a police that don't allow, kids in there. And people can wander the street, and there's girls standing in windows, and it's crazy. And then some guy will go in and they'll pull the shade down, and whatever they do, and that's perfectly legal, and there's nothing wrong with it. I remember when I first went to Germany for any period of time, and somewhat shocking to me was that bare-breasted women were shown on TV, in commercials and whatnot. It was not a big deal. Men could, go to the bathroom right on the side of the road, and often did. I remember walking down the street in Garmisch, and some guy going to the bathroom. They may have changed it by now. I don't know. I haven't been there in a while. But there's a guy going to the bathroom on the side of the road, and standing on the side of the road taking a leak, and some woman goes by. Hey, good. She's waving. He waves back, keeps up, no big deal. They think differently than we do. And if you went into a gas station to pay for your gas, laying right up on the counter where you pay for gas were, I don't know, Rated X magazine. Any kid of 7 or 8 could see them, and they don't hide them. Now, I remember one person explaining to me that, well, in Germany, guess what we do? I was like, man, you got this stuff laying all over. Don't you have kids? And they said, yeah, we have kids. We like our sex just as much as everybody else. And we appreciate it. And we look in the books and we do all those things that you American do. We just don't feel guilty about it. And guess what problem we do not have? It's like, what? It says, teenage pregnancy. I don't know that I agree with that or know anything about it, but I don't dictate or judge what people can and cannot do. Anyway, I've talked about that for a very good and long time to tell you that, different strokes for different folks. And Missouri has, for example, they don't allow prostitution. Obviously, that's against they do allow, have allowed strip clubs. Okay. And it is that topic in general that I want to get to, and some of the law that goes up to this, and some of what the U.S. and the state of Missouri have input regarding such laws, right? Because anywhere you go in the world, you have a different approach depending on where you are. You know what they allow and what they don't allow, and what sort of governmental restrictions there are upon such activity. Over time, we have changed as well. I don't know that we're more liberal, less liberal, but we live in a republic, and so the states can have different interpretations. You go to Vegas, you got all-out prostitution where it's illegal, and in Missouri, uh, I assume it probably still takes place. It's just a little more closed off. You know what I mean? That people either, you know, get away with it or they don't. And I don't judge, not my problem. But I'm here to tell you tonight about some of the laws that we have in Missouri and some of the stuff. But the freedom of speech in America is, we're going to talk a little bit about adult expression and freedom of speech. Expressive content, expressive conduct, but not high value speech. The Supreme Court, and I mean the Supreme Court of the United States, treats nude or erotic dancing as expressive conduct that gets some First Amendment protection. And laws requiring pasties and or G-strings, not totally nude dancing, were upheld in cases called Barnes versus Glenn Theater in 1991, and in the city of Erie versus Paps A&M under intermediate scrutiny. So if somebody's going to interfere with your constitutional rights, you would prefer that it be at the strict scrutiny level, meaning, look, I have the right to do this if I want to, but you better have a damn good reason for putting this law. But on intermediate scrutiny, that law is a little less strict. Intermediate scrutiny, basically, it just means that they're going to weigh the need for the statute against the person's free speech and the restriction upon it. So these are important things. Those are both United States Supreme Court cases, which we may get into here in a little bit. In Missouri, they have secondary effects of zoning. So like you can restrict what part of a city these things can be in, or these venues to curb, undesirable buildings, so long as they target the secondary effects and not the protected conduct itself. And that's from a case called Young versus American Mini Theaters in 1976. And that was in Oklahoma. And then City of Renton versus Playtime Theaters in 86. They had a 1,000-foot buffer space from any, like a school or a church or anything. And that was refined in certain cases. And so it's an interesting series of law that goes about, or it gets checked out in these things. And let's get to a little bit of language on one of these here cases and go to Young versus American Mini Theaters, which is a 1976 case, decided June 24, 1976. It is constitutional for a city to enact a zoning rule that treats ordinary cinemas different from adult cinemas. Okay? So the facts of that case were Zoning ordinances in the city of Detroit required adult movie theaters to be dispersed across the city. They couldn't be located within 1,000 feet of any two other regulated uses, other adult theaters or 9 other types of establishments, nor could they be within 500 feet of a residential area. Okay. So the majority opinion, there were 5 of them, including Stevens, Berger, White, Powell, and Rehnquist, that said the city can regulate the use of commercial property in its boundaries and its interests in maintaining the quality of urban life supports the implementation of this 1,000-foot restriction. On its own, this does not infringe on the First Amendment rights, even though adult movies are admittedly a form of protected speech and the regulation is content-based. These types of movie theaters are associated with serious risk to the public well-being, so the city should have some flexibility in determining an appropriate location. Okay. Dissenting were Potter Stewart, Judge Brennan, Judge Marshall, and Judge Blackmun. They said, rather than a content-neutral time, place, or manner, or a regulation of unprotected obscene speech, this ordinance is a content-based regulation of material that is fully protected by the First Amendment. Even if some people find it socially undesirable, regulations governing it should receive no less stringent level of scrutiny, meaning they wanted strict scrutiny. Okay. So the main interest stated by the city in putting this rigid rule in place was preserving the character of its neighborhoods, which seems pretty flimsy on face value, but the court gave deference to the city's rationale because of its connection to reducing crime and other social ills. The law was not a categorical ban, which would have been struck down, but a mere time, place, and manner type of restriction that is likely to be valid if it is reasonably related to the legitimate government interest and not overly burdensome, right? Now, that's probably enough to give you the whole, there's no need to go into the whole case of this, but remember, these things, it's still called freedom of speech to have this happen. And Missouri had always allowed strip clubs have been a part of Missouri for a long time. We could go into that if you'd like to, but I don't really see any need to get too far into it. Some people say that licensing is a gag order prohibiting this sort of I don't know what, this sort of display. It equals a gag order, but that's not how people see it. I remember living in Dallas, and we had these Germans come over that I worked for a German company, and man, Dallas had extremely good strip clubs, and all these German people had come over for these Friday afternoons and want to go to the strip club for lunch. I had no idea what they were. They called it buffet, and I remember I didn't do it very often. I went, they only came over once a quarter or so, and they wanted to go to buffet. And buffet, what it really meant was these are 5-star strip clubs, and unbelievable. These idiot Germans who come in and spend, with their corporate credit cards and whatnot, and spend, they were high-level executives. They spent so much money in there. When I'd go home we'd go to lunch at like 2:00, and I'd leave to go home at 5. They were there still going, and that was crazy times. Anyway, but a lot of fun and a bunch of nonsense. So there's a trend line. The court just upheld a Texas's age. For example, there are sites like porn sites that you can get online. And in 2025, the court just upheld a Texas age verification law for porn sites, and said that Texas can require a website, a porn website, to verify the age of the people that visit the site. So I don't know how how they're going to do that, but it says Texas law requiring adult websites to verify user age is constitutional and can remain in effect. This case came out. It was a 2023 case. June 27, 2025 is when this came out. So the case stems from a 2023 law that required websites to verify that a user is over 18 if more than 1/3 of the content is considered harmful to minors. A group of adult entertainment websites sued, arguing this violated free speech. Texas countered that the state had the right to protect children with what the Solicitor General framed as a simple, safe, and common restriction. While the Supreme Court justices were divided on the free speech issue, a 6-3 majority sided with Texas, finding that requiring age verification is within the state's authority to prevent children from accessing, porn online. And it's a long judgment. You can go and read that if you like, but that's not the point either. Missouri. Let's go to where, let's see, what's the First Amendment to the United States say? It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, of prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, of the right of the people to peaceably assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Those things are the First Amendment. And the Fourth Amendment sends those to the states, puts it out to the states. And let's see. Now we're going to get to the Missouri Constitution on the Bill of Rights and the freedom of speech. And no law shall be passed impairing freedom of speech, no matter by what means communicated. Every person shall be free to say, write, or publish, or otherwise communicate whatever he will on any subject, being responsible for all abuses of that liberty, and that in all suits and prosecutions for libel or slander, the truth may be given in evidence. And in suits and prosecutions for libel, the jury, under the direction of the court, shall determine the law and the facts. Okay? The Constitution, this might not be the most detailed of statement. That could be a summary, of the actual way it's written. Okay, there's another law that says, and this one is Missouri Constitutional Article 1, Section 13. No ex post facto law, nor law impairing the obligation of contracts, or retrospective in its operation, or making any irrevocable grant of special privileges or immunities can be enacted. Okay? And what that means, ex post facto, means you cannot institute a law in reverse. So you can't say, for example, that a strip club can be in operation, and it is in operation, and then, the business is in place, and then you change the law, and then that law is applied retrospectively to a place that's already in business, and you use it to shut down or horribly regulate this business. And that is where we're going today, because that is what's going on here. Many of you who know that I practice law, I used to do something in federal court, practice things in 42 USC in 1983. And basically, that is civil actions for the deprivation of rights, whatever those rights are. So every person who, what that says basically is that any person who under color of statute, ordinance, regulation, custom, or usage of any state or territory or District of Columbia subjects or causes to be subjected any citizen of the United States or other person within the jurisdiction to the deprivation of rights, privileges, or immunity secured by the Constitution and law shall be liable to the party injured in an action at law, suit in equity, or other proper proceeding for redress, except that in an action brought against judicial officer for an act or omission taken in the officer's judicial capacity, injunctive relief shall not be granted unless a declaratory decree was violated or declaratory relief is unavailable. For the purpose of this section, any act of Congress applicable exclusive to the District of Columbia, blah, blah, blah. We don't care about that. So basically what that does is it passes to a citizen the right to go after the government if they are deprived of constitutional rights or other laws in the state, right? So this is where I am going, okay? Basically, there has been a club, and there's actually been several of them, and one of them filed suit today or yesterday, pretty recent, that I was going to talk about it yesterday, but I hadn't seen it. I had heard it was coming, but I hadn't seen it. And basically, the state of Missouri, on the 28th of August of 2010, enacted versions of the sexually oriented businesses, okay? And there were various histories that go along with it, but the law as it stands right now, basically chapter 573, 531, that says until December 31, 2016, establishment of businesses is prohibited where nudity in establishment is prohibited, display of sexual activities, requirements, state requirements, hours of operation, minors and alcohol prohibited. And so you can't, have alcohol. No person shall establish a sexually oriented business within 1,000 feet of any pre-existing primary or secondary school, house of worship, state licensed daycare facility, public library, public park, residence, or other sexually oriented business. This subsection shall not apply. This is important, okay? This subsection shall not apply to any sexually oriented business lawfully established prior to August 28, 2010. For purposes of this subsection, measurement shall be made in a straight line, blah, blah, blah. So that is the biggest kicker, right? Is to have that. Now, anybody that knows anything about the lake knows that there's been a place in Lake Ozark called GQ, and there's one over on 42. There might be even more. I only know two, but there's another one over there. You drive past it. I forget the name of that one. I can't remember. I remember Club Flirt. It is called Club Flirt when you drive past it, across from the golf course and the cool breakfast place, which I also can't remember the name of. But it's a little place like that. Those places have been in place for the GQ one has been around forever. The one Flirt has been around for a good long time too. Okay, so there are laws that are enacted that say that you can't affect them because they were already established. And the reason is because it would be an ex post facto law to input a new regulation against them and prohibit their business when they've been in operation for in GQ for 40, 50 years. They've been around a long time and been in that location for a long time and always sold alcohol, and always had that kind of thing. Okay. And this allows that now it's a crime if you go and you create one somewhere else, and it gives the ability to it appears a person to enforce this would be a police officer. Okay. And way back when, there was a case called, where is this case? There was an opinion called where is it? This case was I thought I pulled the right case. It looks like I might have pulled the wrong one. Because Club GQ apparently either got sued or sued the city of Lake Ozark when this all occurred. So that case was, where is it? Let's see. That case was, well, crap, I can't find it. I'm really frustrated because I pulled it out before so I would have it available. And now it's not here. And so it is, I'm going to give it one more effort to see if I can find it and get that Jack's reference so that we can show where it is. But apparently that is not going to happen today in order to get that. But at any rate, there has been a lawsuit filed today for a case relating to this topic. And specifically, it's targeting the use of liquor control law to regulate a sexually oriented business. So I think it's something that I might have to look around for an interview or something. Let's think about this. Here's what the law at 573, 531, which was enacted on the 28th of August of 2010, and it said up until December 30, 2016, December 31, I'm sorry, it gave those space distances. Then it said also, no person shall establish a sexually oriented business if a person with an influential interest in the business has been convicted or pled guilty to any specified criminal act. Okay, so you can't be a criminal and open up one of these. No person shall knowingly or intentionally in a sexually oriented business appear in a state of nudity, meaning completely nude. No employee shall knowingly or intentionally appear in a semi-nude condition unless, while semi-nude, shall be and remain on a fixed stage, 6 feet from all patrons and 18 inches from the floor in a room that is at least 600 square feet. Those are some pretty serious restrictions, right? Now, anybody that's been inside GQ knows that this has never been the case. That these, because the reason is because they have been in business already and they were somewhat grandfathered in. Okay. No employee who appears in a semi-nude condition in a sexually oriented business shall knowingly or intentionally touch a patron or the clothing of a patron in a sexually oriented business. curious, but that also is something that's been going on for years in every strip club you ever go in. A sexually oriented business which exhibits on the premises through any mechanical or electronic image producing device, a film, video cassette. Yeah, we don't care about that. Let's see. That one's about filming, and nobody cares about that. Sexually oriented business that do not have stages or configurations to meet the minimum requirements of the above paragraphs shall be given 180 days after 2010, August 28, to comply. Right? No operator shall allow or permit a sexually oriented business to be open between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. That's not the case in any of these places. They all stay open till 1:30, just like liquor. Number 9, no person shall knowingly or intentionally sell, use, or consume alcohol on the premises of a sexually oriented business. Except, they should put comma, except those that have been in existence since before the entry into force of this law. The other one, no person shall knowingly allow a person under the age of 18 on the premises. Okay, that makes sense, right? So that's the law. And there's been a couple of changes of that law over the years. Well, now the Division of Alcohol and Tobacco, or whatever it is, Department of Public Safety, Alcohol and Tobacco Control, is it? Whatever they are. That's an agency of the state, is now attacking one or two of these places, specifically at the lake. Okay, although they may be targeting, because apparently somebody has come in who wants to use the alcohol statutes to attack them on the basis of the fact that they're a sexually oriented business. Now, the reason I thought this was interesting is because I happen to know some of the people who are involved in the GQ business, okay? And I understand how and why, and I also have heard about some of the enforcement that has been going on there. And that place has a good reputation. The cops don't, there's not a lot of, they're not arresting people out, there's not fights, not craziness, not prostitution, none of that stuff. And the place has been run by the same guy for a long time. And it's if he wants to be interviewed, I should be happy to interview him. And I've got a request out, see if he will allow that. And maybe he will. And I think it would be interesting to do so. And you don't have to agree with the business, but the reason I'm interested is because, once again, it's the state targeting specific people, specific businesses, specific actors, imposing its morality upon certain people. I have never been that type of person. I have never been for that. I am libertarian sort. Do I want there to be, prostitution in my backyard? No. Do I want there to be a strip club in my backyard? No, I do not. Do I want to, I don't know what, have street walkers, in the event that, you're in certain areas of the inner city? I do not. Do I think that's what we have in Lake Ozark? No, I don't. Do I think that it's a valid business and a good business and a way for people to make money, including the girls that work there? That is important. It is important. This is what I want to talk about and where I want to go. I want to get more information about this and figure out exactly the impetus behind this, because it's my understanding that they are attacking specifically this. They're asking for a ruling in Cole County against, and they might be bouncing it. There's a procedure to go all the way to the Supreme Court if it's a question of particular importance, which this appears to be. It's a First Amendment kind of right, and whether this grandfathering exists, and whether alcohol and tobacco control can enforce or be the police arm of a different chapter of Chapter 573 when they regulate the Chapter 3, whatever Chapter 3 is, of alcohol control, right? They aren't the enforcement arm for. I don't think anything gave gave them the authority under constitutional authority or otherwise. No regulation. Same thing I have said about the Missouri bar. I say about alcohol and tobacco control. Do they have the authority to regulate under Chapter 573 sexually oriented businesses? Where did they get, just like, remember when I was given the discussion with Ike and that beautiful caller called in and she said, what gave the enforcement arm, these Department of Public Safety, I believe, was them also. What gave them the right to? Who gave them the right to impose constitutional or unconstitutional cameras upon us? Although they have the authority to regulate the streets and whatnot. Who gave them the right to film everything and keep track of people statewide? If I drive across state, they know it, right? If they have cameras everywhere, have they created that, like we went through in the Ike thing? It's, again, these are governmental overreach parameters that they just go too far. They go overboard. And somebody has to push back. And it looks like GQ is pushing back. And I'm very interested in where this case goes and how it ends up. I'm interested in it. And I hope that other people are interested too. And you might not be interested in the topic. The topic might be something that you'd prefer I didn't talk about, or prefer that it was, something else that was, I don't know, maybe a different kind of overreach. But the fact is, the freedom of speech, your freedom of speech, might not be my freedom of speech. You know what I'm saying? It might be something else. It might be, you might think that it's just wrong to have that kind of a business. That's okay. That's your right. Frankly, I'm not sure I want to, that I'd want to own one of those or be a part of one of those or anything like that. But that doesn't mean that they don't provide a valid form of earning a living for other people. And to each their own, I say. And like when people were talking about gay marriage, I was like, well, what is this going to do? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen when the polygamist comes back and goes, well, wait a minute. Why is that okay? I disagree with this astronomically. And these people ought to have their heads ripped off. But what about these minor attracted people? In other words, pedophiles. What if they want to have a bride of the age of 12? These people need to be protected somehow. You should be able to restrict that kind of activity, don't you think? And I think it's a very interesting and curious role that we're going through. So I have seen that a declaratory judgment has been requested, that they are attempting to find out whether or not the state can target them after they've been somewhat grandfathered in on the topic of free speech. There's no question about that. And I'm very interested to see where this goes and whether any other sexually oriented businesses of that type join in. Now, I saw or happen to know some of the facts. I've read some of it, and they're claiming that the state is telling them that they're a girl wearing a thong bikini, a dancer that's wearing a thong or string bikini, is lewd activity because her butt cheeks are showing. And that because of this law that went in place in 2010, they cannot sell alcohol in a place where there's lewd activity going on. Well, I challenge anybody, anytime, to go to any lake area bar where there's a pool and they're serving alcohol everywhere, and tell me that they're not serving alcohol in a place where there's lewd activity going on. And tell me that, you can't serve alcohol where that sort of thing is going on. Now, that's the public, and it's not a strip club. What makes it lewd in a strip club when it's not lewd in the swimming pool? Very curious. Don't you agree? I think that this is overreach, but who the hell am I? I'll be very interested to see where this case goes. Very curious to speak to some of my friends on this and get some more information. Very curious to see where the court comes down on this and if this will go a whole lot further or not. Let us look at a couple of other things and then that I will talk to you about. So basically, let's go through a couple of adult expression cases. Some states, how the republic theory and how states get involved with this, because we're Missouri, and I'll get into Missouri. Missouri has alcohol separation and a strict conduct. State sexually oriented business statute restricts hours, distances, and bans alcohol in the SOB. And this rule of lewdness bars exposing any part of the female areola anywhere liquor is sold. The Supreme Court blessed this statute in Ocello v. Coster in 2011. Okay. Oregon, it's a liberal-leaning free expression model. Oregon courts have read Article 1, Section 8 quite broadly. Many clubs in the Portland area are fully nude with alcohol under local licensing, subject to local distance conduct rules, right? Texas, conservative plus a sin tax angle. A common pattern, no alcohol if there is full nudity, right? And the famous poll tax, which is a fee on sexually oriented business, that was upheld. They used Dallas as an example city that layers zoning plus licensing. Utah is the most restrictive, treats full nudity harshly, no alcohol with full nudity, and extensive no-touch on-stage only rules use as the tightest reins sort of example. Yes? So they are very, very, very Mormon. Why don't we just say that? Georgia has local bans on alcohol, but they do have full nudity. There's a line of cases that they bar full nudity, semi-nudity only with strict rules. Florida's a mixed location. They trend more stricter on ages, so localities vary on alcohol and nudity, but statewide, say that performers have to be 21 or older in 2024-25. There was a challenge to this, but it was dropped after the 11th Circuit signaled approval of that restriction. You know, I already told you a little bit about Las Vegas and Pahrump and all of that. And outside of the U.S., Germany, 2002 Prostitution Act recognized prostitution contracts. 2017, they ran a Prostitution Protection Act that added registration and permits. And it's legal but very regulated, right? In the Netherlands, they're also licensed. They had a 2000 reform that lifted the brothel ban and pushed licensing and anti-drug trafficking enforcement. Amsterdam has continued to debate relocating or reducing the size of the windows I was telling you about. In the UK, they have licensed the venue, not the speech. Lap dancing clubs are called sexual entertainment venues under Policing and Crime Act of 2009. And local councils can cap or deny based on how many are in the area. United Arab Emirates, they have a prohibition and selective enforcement. Sounds like the U.S. Prostitution is illegal, but enforcement varies, especially in Dubai. Meaning you can get away with it in Dubai. What goes on in Dubai stays in Dubai, right? So basically, there's some laws that let's have a look. I told you a little bit about some of the 2025 porn that was enacted. That basically that has to do with the website or porn viewing on online. But there's a whole bunch of these cases. Barnes versus Glenn Theater in 1991. They said it was pasties and G-strings are acceptable limitations to public indecency laws. FW PBS versus Dallas. There's a judicial review that's 493 U.S. 215. And in Missouri, let's talk about this. The SOB regime, which is 573, 537, we have hour limits, distances from school and churches, liquor license venues, local ordinances must keep track of secondary effects. And Gentlemen's Quarters actually sued the city of Lake Ozark on this way back in 2002, and the city lost because it didn't show a secondary effects purpose to the law that they were attempting to enact. So I don't know. If this is speech versus imposition of your own brand of on people, I think is important to consider when you think about these kind of things. Vegas then versus Vegas now. Missouri then versus Missouri now. The Pahrump reality check. There's only 2 brothels now. There used to be quite a few more. I was there in the 90s, and I remember it was famous even to the Russian. And I remember one of them wanted to go and buy a menu. So we went into the entrance where you enter on the bar on the one side, and then they sell the menu, but you can see into kind of the saloon area, if you will, of the brothel. And that was rather entertaining. And a lot of them wanted to buy menus and take them home to their country, because it is not allowed in Russia. At least it never was. Let's see. And I don't know. But there will be some new case law coming from this. And I find it an interesting topic, no matter how you slice it. I'd be interested in knowing about the enforcement of these and how come they are beginning to attempt to enforce it now, whether there's a new boss of the alcohol and tobacco control. I don't know, but this could be an interesting case and something to keep track of. And I intend to keep track of this case and see where it goes. Because again, I'm pretty much a person who believes in the I don't care what you do. You can do whatever it is you do as long as it impact me, long as it doesn't interfere with my freedom. I don't care what your definition of freedom is. And, I don't, of course, but I'm not a person who attempts to regulate other people. There are plenty of people out there who want to regulate other folks. And I believe we have far too many of those individuals in our midst. And they seem to gravitate toward the government. I think those people should stay in the jobs like, I don't know, running a McDonald's where they can tell people what to do. But it's like I call them regulators, the regulator who drives slow in the fast lane, who gets in the fast lane and doesn't use it to pass people. They use it to, by God, I can go 70 because that's the speed limit. And I can go 70 if that's where I want to be, regardless of your desire to go faster in the fast lane. And to go because they are very intent upon regulating other people. Those are people that are government employees. They want to tell everybody else what to do. They want to tell, but they'll also be the first ones to make exceptions for themselves and their friends, or help them get out of trouble if they've violated something. If you kiss up to them, you always find those people to be the ones that are pliant when other people, but if they want to regulate someone, oh no, they're not so pliant after that, right? Anyway, I think I have spoken enough on that topic. I may give you some further information upon it as we go throughout the week. And I did want to talk about a couple of other things. Let's see. One of the biggest things we talked about a little bit last night, because I strongly disagree with this, but apparently the Polish president is having a lot of trouble with what he calls Nazi collaborators, and he thinks these people should be deported. Any Ukrainian involved in glorifying Ukrainian Nazi collaborators such as Stepan Bandera should face prosecution, said Polish President Karol Nawrocki, adding that such behavior has no place in Poland. Now remember, Stepan Bandera killed, by all accounts, 100,000 plus, 100 to 120,000 Polish people. He was commenting on a recent incident involving the display of a flag used by Ukrainian Nazi collaborators at a rap concert in Poland. A group of concert goers showed a flag of the Ukrainian army, the insurgent army, a paramilitary force involved in the ethnic cleansing of Poles in World War II, at the event in Warsaw. The incident sparked a nationwide outcry and prompted the authorities to start deportation procedures against more than 60 foreign nationals, mostly Ukrainians. Narakwi slammed the incident as scandalous. Symbols used by the Ukrainian Nazi collaborators and their modern admirers should be outlawed in Poland, he told the Polsat News in an interview aired on Tuesday, and he urged the parliament to swiftly adopt relevant legislation. He said that such displays are unacceptable and called for very decisive response that should involve expulsion of any Ukrainian involved in such activities. When asked if the incident could have been a provocation, he maintained that such shameful behavior cannot be excused for any reason or circumstance. Just a day after the interview, a 17-year-old Ukrainian was detained for painting Ukrainian neo-Nazi flags on buildings and monuments in Warsaw, as well as desecrating a monument to Polish UPA victims and by inscribing glory to the UPA on it. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk rushed to blame the incident on Moscow by claiming the subject was recruited by Moscow to carry out acts of sabotage. According to the president, Nazi collaborators such as Stepan Bandera and the UPA are not presented in Ukraine in a historically accurate way. Ukrainians are not taught about the atrocities they committed in school. These people were murderers, degenerates, who were responsible for the death of approximately 120,000 Poles, he said. Now, Kiev has never admitted to this type of behavior, and they still deny it. Their reluctance to take responsibility for these atrocities by this Ukrainian Nazi collaborators during World War II always create a fresh batch of thorns between Kiev and Warsaw. But Warsaw is still a pretty big backer of Ukraine. And so, it's unfortunate that we still have to have these discussions about these SS flags and the swastika that are prevalent on Ukrainian nationalist uniforms. I can't imagine that they don't teach this in their schools, but according to popular Russian and many other, Europeans say the same, that they, have sent Ukrainians units that come with these symbols on their uniform insignia. They've sent them back from Germany, from France. They have sent them home and say, you can't be here wearing these insignia. Take them off, change your unit, something. But they don't see it that way, as what it is. I can't imagine that they don't understand what they're doing to people. Crazy. There was another story. You know how I have an affiliation, and I like to watch for natural disasters. I have kind of this horror story affiliation with tornadoes, or obsession, I suppose. Tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes. Well, a natural disaster erased an entire village. 1,100 were evacuated, but the Himalayan Indian state of Uttarakhand says that they still believe there are probably 100 or more buried under debris as well. For Urmila Parashpi, a 48-year-old resident in Mumbai, in the West Indian state of Maharashtra, it was a miracle to come out alive from the town of Darali, which was swept away in India's worst Himalayan disaster since 2013. Urmila was with a group of 6 people in a car when she saw huge debris coming from the hills descending upon the town, an important intersection to reach the Hindu pilgrimage site of Gangotri. It was in the afternoon of August 5th. The human cost of the disaster is still unfolding. Urmila was lucky enough to have survived the incident. A local resident has been begging officials to search for her missing 40-year-old son, who used to run a Maggi and a tea shop. I have not heard from him since the incident happened, and his mobile has been switched off. Tell me if he is alive, and I will go home. Take me to the town, and I will find him myself, she said to an officer. According to the, you got to see these pictures. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. Buildings are half buried, and it looks like, wow. It's these sorts of catastrophes do occur, and tell you what, it is unfortunate. Let's see if there's anything. We got about 10 more minutes. I know there was an opinion piece that I wanted to read or that I might not have gotten into. Let's see. No, I've shared most of that with you. Here's a latest, another Ukrainian. Ready? Zelensky's travel ban relaxation will be selective. So allegedly, men under the age of 22 will be allowed to leave Ukraine if they have a foreign-issued study visa, said Sergei Yevtushuk, who's a MP. The relaxation of Ukraine's ban on traveling abroad for men under the age of 22 recently, which was announced by Zelensky, will apply to very few people. And I still can't get over this, so I'm going to repeat it to you. All men between the ages of 18 and 60 have been barred from leaving the country during martial law. The ban sparked widespread attempts to cross the border illegally. A lot of stories about men dressing up like women to try to get across. But on Tuesday, Zelensky announced on Telegram he ordered the government and military to change the rules to remove any restrictions faced at the border by men under 22. He said that this would be a step to help young Ukrainian men to maintain ties with their homeland and return to Ukraine for study. According to this MP, however, the new rules won't cover all Ukrainian men between the ages of 18 and 22 because then you'd have to relax conscription regulation. A man reaching 18 years of age becomes liable for military service up until he reaches 60 under the law. That's why I don't think the law will be changed, he said to YouTube. The MP believes that a man in this age group seeking to depart will still need to come up with a valid reason. So Zelensky sounds like anyone without exception will get a permit to leave, said Yevtushuk, adding that he believes that only those having an invitation or a study visa will actually be able to travel abroad, although he said that is his opinion. Ukrainian authorities have struggled to deal with draft evasion and frankly with desertion is huge as well. I told you about that. Ukrainian Border Patrol has stopped thousands of people from running out of the country. In fact, some even going so far as shooting them. People have died attempting to escape having been shot by for trying to leave the country. Isn't that crazy? Well, let's go to my final story of the night, right? This I can't believe it. Let's call him Hawk. Remember who I call Hawk? U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham has called any weakening of American aid to Israel means that God will divinely intervene on behalf of Israel if we don't give them money. This guy, I tell you, there's something wrong with him. There's something wrong with this guy. If America pulls the plug on Israel, God will pull the plug on us. Who in the world is this lunatic? He's nuts. The Republican senator made the remarks at the 58th annual Silver Elephant Gala, a major party fundraiser held in South Carolina. He actually went to his own state. Isn't he from South Carolina? Over the weekend, and he shared his speech with a broader audience on social media. He showered praise on Israel for abstaining from committing genocide, despite being in full capacity to do so. Here, listen to this. Israel is our friend. That's it. They're the most reliable friend we have in the Middle East. They are a democracy, surrounded by people who would cut their throats if they could, he claimed, adding that somehow weakening support to Israel will result in divine punishment for America. The senator's remarks came shortly after Israel announced its plan to occupy Gaza City, one of the few areas of the Strip the military does not control. The scheme, touted by Israel as a roadmap to concluding the war with the Palestinian militant group Hamas, has been dragging on for 2 years and has received overwhelmingly negative in the West. The occupation plan has been condemned by multiple organizations. In fact, many countries are saying they will recognize the Palestinian state, including, I told you the other day, including Australia. Excuse me. Oh, isn't this crazy? The occupation plan has been condemned by multiple organizations, all except for the U.S. Many other countries have, condemned what they're doing. Killed 40,000 civilians, 47. I forget what the last number. And the U.S., of course, doesn't say anything because of people like Lindsey Graham. Shortly, I'm not being fair because I can't stand Lindsey Graham and his constant more war, more war, more war yelling. Shortly before the plan was unveiled, even Trump said it was pretty much up to Israel whether to occupy, the Gaza. Graham, a strong backer of Israel, I don't know that it's just Israel. I think it's anybody that, he can sell weapons to. That's what I say. I don't know that it's necessarily just Israel. They're going to do in Gaza what we did in Tokyo and Berlin, take the place by force and start over again, he said in July, suggesting that Washington, the mediator in the stalled Israel-Hamas peace process, actually believed that there was no way to negotiate an end to this war either. Geez, I hate that guy. Hate what he stands for. Let's put it that way. I don't know the guy. Usually you got to get to know somebody before you can hate him, but I sure hate what he stands for. My name is Samuel Trapp. This is International Favor. I'm very glad you joined in with us tonight and listened to my show. I hope that you pay attention when the government is reaching. Pay attention when the government is forcing more war down your throat, because it's just not right. I thought we were better than that as a country. I'm personally sick and tired of being sick and tired of war, and something needs to end. I'm looking forward to Friday. in the old Trumpster, hopefully doing something about it. Tune in every night at 9 p.m. damradio.com/live. Listen to our podcasts at damradio/podcast. You can always listen to mine at internationalflavor.com, where I upload them all and would be happy to have you subscribe there. You have a very nice evening. See you tomorrow.